I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white against the leather, as rain lashed the windshield of my Audi. Seattle's skyline blurred into streaks of neon and shadow, the late-night traffic thinning on the I-5 as I pushed toward home. My phone buzzed on the passenger seat, a text from my assistant Laura about the billion-dollar merger case that had consumed my life for weeks. Clients freaking out. "Call me," I sighed, my eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. A black SUV loomed too close, its headlights cutting through the storm like predatory eyes. I pressed the gas, eager to shake it, but the SUV matched my speed, tailing me through the slick curves of the highway. Something felt wrong. My gut churned, a lawyer's instinct honed by years of sniffing out lies in boardrooms and courtrooms. I tapped the brakes to slow down, but the pedal sank to the floor with a sickening softness. No resistance, no control. The Audi lurched forward, hydroplaning across the wet asphalt. My heart slammed against my ribs as the guardrail loomed, the dark waters of Puget Sound glittering below like a hungry void. I yanked the wheel, tires screeching, and the car spun, skidding to a stop inches from the edge. The SUV roared past, its taillights vanishing into the night. I sat there, breath ragged, hands trembling. The rain pounded harder, a relentless drumbeat against the roof. My phone buzzed again, but I ignored it. Someone had tampered with my brakes. I knew it as surely as I knew my own name. Emily Carter, 36, senior partner at Kessler. Blake, Seattle's top corporate law firm. This wasn't an accident, it was a warning. But from who? The merger case had enemies, powerful ones. But this felt personal, like a blade aimed at my back. I didn't know then that the real betrayal was waiting for me, not on a rain-soaked highway, but at my sister's wedding, where my family would shatter everything I'd built. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back, before the crash, before the champagne glass shattered in my hand, before I learned the house I'd poured my soul into wasn't mine anymore. I grew up in Bellevue, a leafy suburb east of Seattle, in a craftsman-style home with cedar shingles and a wraparound porch that smelled of pine and summer barbecues. It wasn't a mansion, but it was our Smine, my parents' Robert and Susan's, and my younger sister Chloe's. My father was a mid-level coder at a tech startup back when Seattle was just starting to explode with dot-com dreams. My mother taught art at a local high school, her paint-splattered smocks a constant in our laundry room. We were the picture of middle-class stability, Sunday pot roasts, 4th of July sparklers, and a Christmas tree that always leaned slightly to the left. But even as a kid, I saw the cracks. Chloe came along when I was 5, a wide-eyed bundle of curls who could do no wrong. By her 8th birthday, my parents rented a pony and a petting zoo, transforming our backyard into a carnival for her entire class. I watched from the porch, clutching my second-hand copy of To Kill a Mockingbird, a gift for my own birthday 2 months earlier. Chloe's sensitive, my mother would say, her voice soft but firm. She needs a little extra love. You're so strong, Emily. Strong. That word became my cage. By 15, I was pulling double shifts as a barista and tutoring rich kids in algebra to buy my own clothes, while Chloe got a brand new Jeep Wrangler for her sweet 16, complete with a red bow in the driveway. They always had an excuse. The timing's better now, my father would mutter. Finances have improved. Or the worst one, Chloe needs more support than you do. You're so independent. Independent wasn't a choice, it was survival. I learned early that if I wanted something, I had to earn it. College was no different. I clawed my way into the University of Washington on a partial scholarship, juggling 2 jobs waitressing at a diner and shelving books at the library to cover the rest. My parents sent 1-0 a semester, calling it what we can afford. Meanwhile, Chloe sailed into Pepperdine, a private liberal arts college in California, with her tuition fully paid. She wouldn't manage student loans like you can, my mother said, as if I enjoyed scraping by on instant noodles and 4 hours of sleep. I didn't resent Chloe, not really. She was my little sister, all charm and no responsibility, floating through life like a dandelion seed. I loved her, even if her world seemed to bend to her whims while mine demanded constant hustle. After college, the 2008 recession hit like a tidal wave. Law school grads were flipping burgers, but I refused to fold. I took a paralegal job at a small firm, studied for the bar exam at night, and lived in a closet-sized apartment with a leaky faucet and a mattress on the floor. My first year as a lawyer was brutal 2 corporate cases, barely enough to cover rent. My parents offered sympathy over Sunday dinners, but little else, suggesting I consider a stable career, maybe teaching. I smiled, nodded, and kept grinding. The breakthrough came at 27. A tech CEO hired me for a merger deal, impressed by my tenacity. One case led to another, and soon I was the go-to lawyer for Seattle's tech elite. By 30, I was a senior partner at Kessler Blake, handling billion-dollar deals and living in a sleek downtown condo with a view of the Space Needle. I'd traded my beat-up Honda for an Audi, my ramen for sushi, but the hustle never stopped. Meanwhile, Chloe bounced between influencer gigs and boutique jobs, posting yacht selfies and designer hauls on Instagram. Her lifestyle didn't add up until I realized my parents were still bankrolling her. Phone bills, rent, even her spiritual retreats to Bali. They never asked me for help, and I never offered. That is, until the crisis hit. It was a Tuesday night when my father called, his voice brittle over the line. At 60, he'd been laid off when his startup imploded, a casualty of a market crash. My mother's autoimmune disease had worsened, her treatments costing thousands not covered by insurance. "We're fine," he insisted, but I heard the lie. During a visit to Bellevue, I found a stack of past-due mortgage notices hidden under a pile of art magazines. My parents admitted they were 3 months behind, the bank circling like a vulture. Pride had kept them silent, but the truth was stark. They were drowning. I didn't hesitate. "I'll cover the mortgage," I said, sitting at their worn oak table. "And the medical bills not covered by insurance." My mother's eyes welled up, her hands clutching mine. "This house is your inheritance, Emily," she said. "You're saving our legacy. We'll never forget this." My father nodded, his jaw tight. "You're a godsend." The plan was temporary just until my father found work, but months turned to years. His job search yielded nothing but part-time coding gigs, and my mother's health forced her to retire early. I wired 40 every month for the mortgage, plus extra for taxes, repairs, and hospital copays. 7 years later, my contributions topped 350. Zero. I painted walls, fixed gutters, drove them to appointments. The house became my anchor, a promise of stability in a life of relentless ambition. Chloe, meanwhile, lived in her own universe. She'd visit for Christmas or birthdays, breezing in with overpriced candles or artisanal coffee, never mentioning the crisis. If she knew about my payments, she didn't care. Her life was a carousel of yoga retreats and Coachella tickets, all courtesy of our parents' dwindling savings and my blind loyalty. I told myself she'd grow up eventually, that she'd step up when it mattered. I was wrong. Everything changed when Chloe met Ethan Caldwell at a tech gala in Seattle. Ethan, 32, was the golden son of a Silicon Valley titan. His family's fortune built on cloud software and questionable tax maneuvers. Their romance was a whirlwind private jets to Aspen, courtside seats at NBA games, dinners at restaurants where the wine list started at 500. My mother was obsessed, gushing about Ethan's pedigree and his family's estate on Puget Sound. "He's the real deal," she said during one of my visits, her eyes gleaming. "Chloe's set for life." I nodded, ignoring the unease creeping up my spine. My parents' energy shifted. They were suddenly hosting dinner parties, repainting the guest room, shopping with Chloe for designer dresses. Their financial woes seemed to vanish when it came to her. 6 months later, Ethan proposed with a diamond the size of a grape, and wedding planning swallowed our family whole. The engagement party was at the Caldwell's private yacht club, a sprawling waterfront property that screamed old money. I arrived late, straight from a 14-hour day at the firm, my tailored blazer out of place among Chanel gowns and Rolexes. My mother waved me over, her cheeks flushed with champagne. "Emily, you made it," she called, standing with a group of women I didn't know. I caught the tail end of their conversation. "The wedding gift will be life-changing," she said, her voice conspiratorial. "Something to build their empire on." The women nodded, their diamonds glinting. I asked what she meant, but she brushed me off. "Just ideas, honey. Try the shrimp skewers, they're divine." The dismissal stung, but I let it go. The night was a blur of small talk and power plays, with my parents mingling like they belonged among Seattle's elite. I felt like an outsider in my own family, my success as a lawyer irrelevant next to Chloe's fairy tale engagement. Over the next weeks, the secrecy grew. My father called, asking for an extra 10,000 for urgent roof repairs. I wired the money, but when I visited the house, the roof was untouched. Instead, I found Chloe and my mother surrounded by wedding planners, swatches of silk, and a catering estimate that could have bought a car. "Just dreaming big," my mother said, tucking the papers away. My father, reading the newspaper, added, "Some things are worth stretching for." I swallowed my questions, but the math wasn't adding up. Then came the brake failure. 2 days after the engagement party, I was driving home from a late-night deposition when my brakes gave out. The mechanic's report was chilling. The brake lines had been deliberately cut. "You're lucky to be alive," he said, showing me the clean slice. I thought of the SUV tailing me, the merger cases enemies rival firms, corporate sharks, even Ethan's family, who'd made vague threats about staying in my lane. But why would my family's new connections target me? I filed a police report, but without evidence, it went nowhere. Sleep became a luxury, my nights haunted by the screech of tires and the question of who wanted me gone. The wedding loomed, a 2 million spectacle at the Caldwell's Puget Sound estate. As a bridesmaid, I was roped into dawn-to-dusk preparations, soothing Chloe's tantrums over teal versus turquoise linens, and tracking down a florist who'd flown in peonies from France. My mother's mantra was relentless. "Make this perfect for Chloe. It's her dream." I complied, my smile a mask, even as I calculated the cost of every chandelier and caviar tray. My firm was in chaos-leaked documents from the merger case had sparked a PR nightmare, and a client was threatening a 50 million lawsuit, blaming me. I worked 20-hour days, fueled by coffee and adrenaline, while my family planned a wedding that screamed extravagance they couldn't afford. The ceremony was flawless, Chloe radiant in a 20-0 gown, Ethan grinning like he'd won the lottery. My parents sat front row, my mother dabbing tears with a silk handkerchief, my father glowing with pride. I stood at the altar, my heels pinching, my mind on the merger case's missing witness who'd vanished days earlier. During the reception, I nursed a single glass of wine, bracing for whatever my parents were hiding, their whispered huddles with Ethan's family, the meaningful glances it all pointed to a bombshell. It came after the main course. My father stood, tapping his glass, his voice thick with emotion. "Chloe's always been our dreamer," he began, the room falling silent. "Tonight, Susan and I are giving her and Ethan the greatest gift we can. Our family home in Bellevue, fully paid, to start their life together." The crowd erupted in applause, guests gushing about the heartwarming gesture. Chloe gasped, clutching Ethan, tears streaming. My mother beamed, accepting congratulations. I froze, the wine glass splintering in my hand, blood trickling down my wrist. 7 years. 350. 0. Every payment, every sacrifice, every promise of "this is your inheritance" burned to ash. They'd used my money to clear the mortgage, then handed the house to Chloe without a word to me. I stumbled to the bathroom, rinsing blood from my hand, my reflection pale in the mirror. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was personal. They'd erased me, my sacrifices, my place in the family. I left the reception without a goodbye, driving to the Bellevue house in a daze. The familiar porch, the cedar shingles, the garden I'd weeded with my mother, it wasn't mine anymore. I sat in my car, rain blurring the windshield, until my parents returned at midnight, still in their gala attire. "Why?" I demanded, following them inside. The living room was cluttered with wedding gifts, a cruel irony. My father loosened his tie, avoiding my eyes. "It's our house, Emily. We appreciated your help, but it's our name on the deed." My voice shook. "Was your name on the 350, 0 I paid? The taxes? The new roof?" My mother's tone was ice. "That was your choice. We never forced you." I laughed, bitter. "You said it was my inheritance, my future." My father sighed. "Plans change. Chloe and Ethan need a foundation. You're already set: your condo, your career." My mother nodded. "Chloe's building something bigger. You don't need this like she does." The truth spilled out in fragments. They'd transferred the deed 2 months earlier, using my last 10-0 to clear the mortgage for a clean gift. The lawyer I'd seen was Ethan's family fixer, tying the house to a shady business deal. They saw my contributions as a favor, not an investment. I walked out, vowing never to fund them again. That night, my condo felt hollow, the city skyline mocking me through the windows. I curled up on my couch, tears mixing with the blood still crusted on my hand, and realized my family had never seen me as equal, just the reliable one, the one who didn't need their loyalty. The next morning, my office was a war zone. The merger case was imploding. A rival lawyer had leaked our strategy to the press, and the client was screaming about a lawsuit. I worked until dawn, salvaging what I could, but the threats kept coming. A dead rose on my desk, a note in jagged handwriting. "Stop digging." Into what? The house? The merger? The brake sabotage? I hired a private investigator, a grizzled ex-cop named Mike, to trace the threats. "Someone's got it out for you," he said, chewing a toothpick. "Could be corporate, could be personal. Either way, watch your back." Weeks passed in a haze of work and avoidance. My parents called relentlessly, their voicemails shifting from concern to irritation. Chloe texted once, gushing about the wedding, oblivious to the house drama. I ignored them all, focusing on the case and my survival. Then came the break-in. I came home to find my condo ransacked, not a single valuable taken, but my merger files scattered, pages torn. A message was scrawled on my wall in red marker. "You'll pay." I moved to a hotel, my nerves frayed, my PI digging deeper. Mike found a loose connection. Ethan's family had ties to a rival firm, one that stood to lose millions if my merger succeeded. Were they behind the threats, or was my own family complicit? Chloe and Ethan moved into the Bellevue house, their Instagram a parade of renovations, marble counters, smart home tech, the garden ripped out for a hot tub. Each post was a knife twist, erasing my childhood. My parents, meanwhile, faced a new crisis. Chloe and Ethan wanted them out, claiming the house needed their vibe. My father left a voicemail, casual but desperate. "We're looking at apartments, Emily, but it's tough. Your beach house on Whidbey Island, maybe we could stay there a bit?" The audacity floored me. My beach house, a 3-bedroom retreat I'd bought with my first big commission, was my sanctuary. They'd given away one home I'd paid for, and now they wanted another. I refused, meeting them at a coffee shop to lay it out. "The beach house is mine," I said, sliding a folder of rental listings across the table. "You made your choice. My mother's face crumpled. "We're your parents, Emily. We need you." My father's voice hardened. "After all we've done, you're turning your back?" I stood, my voice steady. "You turned your back when you gave my inheritance to Chloe. Find your own way." I walked out, their shocked faces burned into my memory. The fallout was swift. Aunts and uncles I hadn't seen in years flooded my inbox with guilt trips. Chloe called, accusing me of jealousy, her voice venomous. "You're leaving Mom and Dad homeless?" she screamed. I hung up, then blocked her. Extended family posted cryptic Facebook rants about ungrateful kids. I fired back with one email, detailing every dollar I'd paid, every promise broken. "This is a family matter," I wrote. "Respect my privacy." Then I muted them all. Work became my lifeline. The merger case was a tightrope, every move scrutinized. A key witness vanished, leaving me scrambling to rebuild our case before a court deadline. Then the tabloids struck a gossip rag, published my family drama, painting me as a cold-hearted lawyer abandoning her parents. Clients wavered, my firm's board whispered about demotion. I fought back, working 80-hour weeks, my PI chasing leads on the threats. One night, leaving the office, I noticed the black SUV again, tailing me through downtown. I swerved into Pike Place Market, losing them in the crowd, my heart pounding. Mike's next report was grim. The SUV was registered to a shell company linked to Ethan's family. I bought a gun, a sleek 9mm, and took shooting lessons, my lawyer's logic warring with primal fear. Therapy helped twice-weekly sessions, where I unpacked decades of over-responsibility, of being the strong one, while Chloe got coddled. I reconnected with my friend Sarah, who poured wine and listened as I raged. "They used you," she said, blunt as ever. "Set boundaries, or they'll bleed you dry." She was right. I drafted a new life plan. No more family handouts. No more sacrificing my dreams for their comfort. 6 months after the wedding, I stood in my new Queen Anne mansion, a historic gem I'd bought with my merger bonus. The oak floors gleamed, the stained glass windows catching the Seattle sun. It was mine. Built on my terms, not an inheritance I'd begged for. My beach house became a true retreat, where I painted, read, and started dating Daniel, a cybersecurity expert who respected my boundaries and shared my love for quiet nights. My parents found a small apartment in Renton, their lifestyle humbled. Chloe and Ethan's marriage cracked under financial strain. His family's empire was crumbling amid fraud charges. The Bellevue house, now a money pit with a lien. One October morning, my father appeared at my office, looking older, his suit slightly wrinkled. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice breaking. "We screwed up, Emily. I let your mother run the show, and we hurt you." He'd started therapy, confronting his role in decades of favoritism. My mother's apology came later, a tearful email admitting her obsession with Chloe's perfect life had blinded her. She suggested family therapy, a tentative step. I agreed, but with rules. No guilt trips, no demands. The first session was raw me father open, my mother defensive, me finally voicing the pain of being invisible. The threats didn't stop. My office was vandalized, case files shredded. "You'll lose everything," spray painted on the wall. Mike traced it to Ethan's cousin, a low-level thug tied to the rival firm. I won the merger case, securing my place at the firm, but the questions lingered. Who else was involved? Was Chloe complicit? Would my family ever truly change? As I stood on my mansion's balcony, the city sparkling below, I knew one thing. My worth wasn't tied to their approval. I'd built my own legacy, and no one could take that away. The rain hadn't stopped since the wedding, a relentless Seattle drizzle that mirrored the storm inside me. I sat in my hotel room, the Space Needle, a faint silhouette through the fogged window, my laptop open to a spreadsheet that burned my eyes. 350, 2, 780. 7 years of mortgage payments, property taxes, medical bills, and home repairs for a house my parents had gifted to my sister Chloe without a whisper of consultation. The numbers stared back, a cold testament to my naivety. I'd believed their promises, their tearful gratitude, their assurances that the Bellevue Craftsman was my inheritance. Now it was Chloe and Ethan's, a shiny backdrop for their Instagram empire. While I dodged threats and rebuilt my life from the wreckage of their betrayal, my phone buzzed. A text from Mike, my private investigator, found a lead on the SUV. Meet me at the diner on Pike, 8 a.m. I glanced at the clock. 2:17 a.m. Sleep was a lost cause. My mind replaying the brake failure, the dead rose on my desk, the break-in at my condo. Someone was watching me, and the pieces were starting to point to Ethan's family, the Caldwells, whose tech empire was crumbling under fraud allegations. But why target me? Was it the merger case, a billion-dollar deal that could sink their rivals? Or was it personal, tied to the house I'd paid for, now a pawn in their shady dealings? I poured a glass of bourbon, the burn grounding me, and stared at the city lights, searching for answers in the blur. Morning came too fast. The diner smelled of coffee and grease, its neon sign flickering in the grey dawn. Mike slid into the booth across from me, his leather jacket damp, a manila folder in hand. The SUV's registered to a shell company, Triton Ventures, he said, voice low. Buried under layers of paperwork, but it traces back to a Caldwell subsidiary. Their sloppy left a digital trail. I leaned forward, my coffee untouched. Why me? I'm not even on their radar. Mike's eyes narrowed. You're a threat. That merger you're handling, it's with Nexus Corp, their biggest competitor. And the house transfer? I dug into the lawyer's files. It wasn't just a gift your parents signed it over to secure a stake in Ethan's new startup. Your money paid off the mortgage to make it clean for the deal. My stomach twisted. The betrayal cut deeper than I'd imagined. My parents hadn't just given Chloe the house, they'd used my 350 to buy their way into Ethan's world, trading my sacrifice for a seat at the tech elite's table. What's the startup? I asked, my voice steady despite the rage. Mike slid the folder over. Caldwell Analytics. Data mining, AI-driven. Sketchy contracts. Offshore accounts. Your parents are listed as silent partners, but the real players are Ethan's father and some guy named Victor Kane, a fixer with a rap sheet. I flipped through the documents, deeds, emails, a memo hinting at leverage over Nexus. My name appeared once in a cryptic note. Neutralize Carter's interference. They're coming for you, Mike said. The brakes, the break-in, the note, it's all connected. I left the diner, my mind racing. The merger case was my lifeline, a billion-dollar deal that could cement my legacy at Kessler, Blakey or destroy it. The board had already threatened demotion if I didn't deliver, and the leaked documents had sparked a media frenzy. Now, a key witness, a Nexus whistleblower, had vanished, leaving me scrambling to rebuild our case before a looming court deadline. As I drove to the office, a black SUV appeared in my rearview mirror, the same one from the highway. My pulse spiked. I swerved into a side street, weaving through Capitol Hill's narrow alleys, losing them in a maze of coffee shops and boutiques. My hands shook as I parked, the gun in my glove compartment a cold reminder of how far this had gone. The office was a war zone. My assistant, Laura, met me at the elevator, her face pale. The board's in a closed meeting. They're talking about you. I nodded, brushing past her to my corner office, where a new threat waited. My desk was trashed, case files shredded, and a single phrase spray-painted across the wall in crimson. You'll pay for this. Security swept the floor, but the cameras had been disabled a professional job. I called Mike. Kane, he said instantly. He's done this before. Ex-military, works dirty for the Caldwells. I'm digging deeper, but you need protection. I hung up, my fingers brushing the 9mm in my purse. I'd trained for this, but the weight of it felt heavier than ever. Work was my only escape. I took on a new case, a risky pro bono against a corrupt energy corporation, hoping the fight would drown the pain, but the family drama followed me. My parents' voicemails piled up, alternating between guilt trips and demands. "We need to talk, Emily," my mother's voice pleaded. "We're in a bind." Then my father, sharper. "This isn't how family works." I ignored them, but Chloe's text broke my resolve. "You're so selfish, leaving Mom and Dad homeless. Come see the house, it's amazing now." Attached was a photo of my childhood bedroom, gutted, the walls now stark white with a neon "Live, Laugh, Love" sign. The growth chart my mother had marked with our heights was painted over, erased like my sacrifices. I drove to Bellevue that night, uninvited, the house glowing under new LED lights. Chloe answered the door, her hair perfect, a glass of rosé in hand. "Emily, you should have called." Her cheer was a performance, but Ethan's presence behind her was colder, his eyes calculating. "What do you want?" he asked, arms crossed. "The truth," I said. "Why did you take my house?" Chloe laughed, a brittle sound. "Your house? It was Mom and Dad's. You helped out, sure, but it's ours now. Get over it." Ethan stepped closer, his voice low. "You're stirring up trouble, Emily. That merger. Drop it or things get messy." The threat hung heavy, and I left, my hands trembling not from fear but fury. The next morning, Laura called in a panic. "The tabloids got your story, 'Lawyer abandons family for fortune.' It's everywhere." I opened my laptop to a headline splashed across a gossip site. "Seattle's Ice Queen betrays parents for high-flying career." The article twisted my $350 sacrifice into optional gifts, painting me as a heartless careerist. Clients called, questioning my stability. The board summoned me for an urgent review. I fought back, releasing a statement through a PR firm, but the damage was done. My reputation, my life's work, was unraveling, and I suspected Ethan's family had fed the story to the press to discredit me. I met Sarah for coffee, my only anchor in the storm. She poured us both a double espresso, her eyes fierce. "They're gaslighting you, Em. Your parents, Chloe, the Caldwells, they're all in on this. You need to fight dirty." She was right. I emailed my parents a ledger of every payment, $352,780, itemized to the center declaring all support ended. Their response was a masterclass in manipulation. My mother's tearful essay about family loyalty, my father's lecture on my transactional heart. Neither acknowledged the betrayal, only their entitlement. I blocked their numbers, but the extended family piled on group chats, buzzed with aunts calling me ungrateful, cousins posting Bible verses about honoring parents. I fired back with a single email, detailing every dollar, every lie, and a demand for privacy. Then I muted them all. The threats escalated. Leaving the office late, I spotted the black SUV again, this time parked across the street. I ducked into Pike Place Market, the crowd swallowing me as I wove through fish stalls and flower vendors. My phone pinged a text from an unknown number. "Back off, or you won't walk away next time." I forwarded it to Mike, who traced it to a burner phone, likely Kane's. I slept with the gun under my pillow, my dreams a montage of screeching tires and spray-painted threats. Therapy became my lifeline, twice-weekly sessions where I unraveled decades of being the strong one. "You've been over-functioning since you were a kid," my therapist said. "Your family leaned on that, and now they're punishing you for setting limits." She was right, but knowing it didn't stop the nightmares. The merger case was my last stand. The witness's disappearance had gutted our evidence, and the court deadline was days away. I worked 80-hour weeks, rebuilding the case from scraps, while the board's threats loomed. "Win this, or you're out," they'd said, their faith in me shaken by the tabloid scandal. Then came the bombshell. Mike found the witness hiding in a Tacoma motel, terrified. "Kane threatened his family," he said. "He's tied to the Caldwells and your parents' deal." I convinced the witness to testify, promising protection, and flew him to a safe house. The night before the hearing, my office was vandalized, again files burned, monitors smashed, and a new message carved into my desk. "Last chance. I didn't sleep, but I didn't break." The hearing was a bloodbath. The opposing counsel, a shark named Vanessa Reed, hammered me with leaked details, but I countered with the witness's testimony, exposing Nexus's rival as a front for money laundering. The judge ruled in our favor, securing the merger and my $2 million bonus. The board apologized, offering me a corner office and a raise. I smiled, but my mind was on the Caldwells. Mike's latest report confirmed Victor Kane was their enforcer, hired to intimidate me into dropping the case. The house deal was the tip of the iceberg web of offshore accounts and fake partnerships, with my parents as unwitting pawns. I was done playing nice. I hired a forensic accountant to trace the house transfer, uncovering emails between Ethan and my mother, plotting to use my payments to clear the mortgage for their startup stake. I confronted my parents at a neutral coffee shop, sliding the evidence across the table. "You sold my future for a pipe dream," I said. My mother's face crumpled, but her apology was hollow. "We thought it was best for Chloe," she whispered. My father was silent, his eyes on the floor. "You thought wrong," I said, walking out. That night, I bought a historic Queen Anne mansion, its gabled roof and stained glass windows a symbol of my independence. No one could claim it but me. Chloe's world was imploding. The Caldwells' fraud scandal broke, their stock tanking, Ethan's startup dead before launch. The Bellevue house, once my childhood haven, had a lien for unpaid contractor bills, its new tech aesthetic peeling and neglected. Chloe posted cryptic Instagram stories about growth through pain, but mutual friends whispered of fights Ethan spotted with an ex at a gala. My parents, now in a cramped Renton apartment, called daily, hinting at needing my Whidbey Island beach house. "Just for a bit," my mother pleaded. I refused, my voice steel. "You made your bed. Lie in it." Then came the breakthrough. My father showed up at my office, unannounced, looking like he'd aged a decade. "I was wrong," he said, his voice cracking. "Your mother pushed the house deal, but I let her. I've been in therapy, seeing how we failed you." He slid a box across my desk. Mother's brownies, my childhood favorite, a gesture that stung more than it healed. I listened as he laid out the truth. My mother's obsession with Chloe's perfect life, her fear of losing status, his own cowardice in staying silent. "I don't expect forgiveness," he said, "but I'm trying to change." For the first time, I saw him not as my father, but as a man grappling with his flaws. We agreed to monthly lunches, a cautious step toward something new. My mother's call came weeks later, her voice raw with tears. "I was wrong, Emily. I built Chloe up because I saw myself in her, my own failures. I lost you in the process." She proposed family therapy, a chance to rebuild. I agreed, but with boundaries, no demands, no guilt. The first session was brutal. My father open, my mother defensive, me finally naming the pain of being invisible. We left with homework, small steps toward healing, but I knew trust would take years. The threats stopped after Kane's arrest, caught on a wiretap, plotting another hit. Mike's evidence tied him to the Caldwells, who faced federal charges. Chloe and Ethan listed the house for sale, their marriage on life support. I stood in my new mansion, the Seattle skyline glittering below, Daniel by my side. He'd traced the tabloid leak to Ethan's cousin, closing the last loop of the conspiracy. "You're unstoppable," he said, his hand warm in mine. I smiled, not because it was over, but because I'd survived. The house, the money, the threats they'd tried to break me, but I'd built something stronger, a life on my terms, a legacy no one could steal.